Hello and welcome back to Everyone's Entitled to One Good Scare, the Ark of E's exclusive Halloween franchise deep dive podcast. We are the Brothers Blanchard. I am one half of that equation. I am Matthew J. Blanchard. With me, as always, is my co-host, my brother.
I'm Patrick J. Blanchard.
And what we do here at the Ark of E is we go through franchises and we deep dive on all of the adventures, giving each movie its own due course. And it's a damn good thing we do because there's a movie that often gets overlooked in the Halloween canon. And we're talking about it today. Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. The third Halloween movie, the one that most people call the Mask movie. The one that has nothing to do with Michael Myers in any way, shape, or form. So, last time we talked about Halloween 2, the first Universal Pictures produced Halloween movie.
Yep.
Which was part and parcel of a sort of idea that Mustafa, John, and Deborah kind of collectively had of making an anthology series,
yes.
Sort of like a Twilight Zone of movies for the horror genre, all set in and around Halloween. So that every year a new Halloween picture or a new picture with a Halloween theme would come out. And if it was very successful, they'd sequelize it. If not, it'd be that one franchise, and then they'd move on to the next. And we talked last time about how they had initially reached out to Tommy Lee Wallace, the production designer from Halloween 1, to direct Halloween 2. But when he found out that he couldn't sort of make it his own and go in new directions, he bowed out. Because It wasn't the movie he wanted to make. So we circle back after the release of Halloween 2 and its massive success. To the idea of another Halloween movie, but Michael Myers is clearly fucking dead.
Yes.
He melted. It's over. Move on. What do we do? How do we do this? Well, we double down on the stated premise of an anthology series.
Now, John's a fan of all sorts of different weird stuffs.
John's an esoteric kind of guy.
He likes these movies.
Yes. From
England, starring Professor Quatermass.
Yes, Quatermass. It's a series of movies, but it's actually it's a BBC television production that kind of gets
cut into
collected
movies
together as a film. Which is something that the BBC did at the time in the 60s. Several of the Doctor Who episodes got collected and then refilmed as a movie starring Peter Cushing as the Doctor. He was not the same Doctor as the Doctor on Doctor Who, but the stories were the same. They basically just took the BBC scripts, slapped them together, and made a movie.
Yep.
And the same thing happened for Quatermass. Quatermass was a series, and then they'd slap it together, like several episodes together, and make a movie out of it. Sometimes with the same actor who played him on the show, sometimes not.
Yeah.
Famously, the one that came to the United States was Quatermass and the Pit.
Or 5 million years to Earth.
5 million years to Earth. Which is, it has some structural similarities to 2001.
Yeah.
It's sort of about the unseen hand of an alien force guiding our evolution as people, and us finding evidence of that. And Quatermass and the Pit, or 5 Million Years to Earth, is a brilliant movie. And the creator of this sci-fi franchise, this very quirky, offbeat way of looking at science fiction is the brainchild of Nigel Neal.
Yes.
John is a huge fan of Nigel Neal, and he's a huge fan of Quatermass. So is Tommy Lee Wallace.
Yes.
So John reaches out to Nigel Neal, who, by all accounts, has had terrible experiences with Hollywood.
Yes.
Like, Nigel has tried multiple times to bring Quatermass to the U.S., and he's been contracted to write scripts for many things by people who were fans of the Quatermass pictures. And it ends up never working right. So he's not real receptive to the idea of working within the Hollywood studio system. But he still does the contract work. He still takes the job to write a script for John Carpenter. And he takes a draft at what will become Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. And he submits it. He sends it on. But rather than sort of entering into what could be a contentious editorial fight with Nigel Neal, John Carpenter just does a revision.
Yes.
Because he thinks that Nigel's not going to take very kindly to any notes from John.
Yes.
So he's like, fuck it, I'll rewrite it myself. And he does a whole pass at it, and he turns it over to Tommy Lee Wallace, who at this point is attached as the director.
Yes. There's a name that was previously attached.
Yes.
That is interesting, considering we've been talking how Dean Cundey is going in these circles later on.
Right.
And that the person who was attached before Tommy Lee Wallace and then dropped was Zemeckis.
Yes, Robert Zemeckis. And Robert Zemeckis, of course, will, forge his own path and will again connect with Dean Cundey in just a year after this. 2 years after.
2 years, because this is 82.
This is 82, and that's it's 1985, but they begin working on Back to the Future in 1984.
Yeah.
So yes, but Zemeckis, I can't remember why Zemeckis backs out.
I've never seen the reason why.
Yeah.
I've just seen that he was attached and then unattached.
Yep. And then Tommy Lee Wallace is given the reins. The second he takes over, he reads John's draft, and he's like, I don't really like this.
So he does a
rewrite. And he says that about 80% of what's in the picture is from the Nigel Neal draft. And that the rest of it's John Carpenter and him. Which, 20% him, 20%, 10% him, 10% John, or any one of that 20. None of that's reflected by the credit. And that's one of the things that Tommy Lee Wallace goes out of his way to talk about in every interview about this movie since the 1980s, is that the credit on the film says written by Tommy Lee Wallace.
Yep.
It's not written by Tommy Lee Wallace. It's really written by Nigel Neal and John Carpenter and Tommy Lee Wallace. And he goes out of his way to point that out again and again and again, which is, kind of classy on his part. I will grant that. I've always liked Tommy Lee Wallace. He seems like a stand-up guy. He seems like a working-class hero of the film industry.
Apparently, from what I've read, what was pulled out was the weird, quirky sense of humor.
Right. Yes.
The Britishness was pulled out.
Which is, ironically enough, what got him the job in the first place.
Yes. But apparently, in the script, at least in the eye of John Carpenter,
right,
he went too far with it.
Well, if anybody knows about going a step too far with the joke, or beating a dead horse, it's John Carpenter.
Yeah, I mean, it's the guy who
he's aware.
It's the guy who at this point has made the thing.
Right.
And understands going a step too far.
Yes, indeed. That's true. So we end up having this... Because
this is the year the thing comes out, 82. It comes out in 82 as well.
Yes, indeed. So we have this movie that ends up being about the trappings of Halloween in a way that Halloween 1 and 2, the Michael Myers movies, didn't really touch on.
Yeah.
This sort of the build up to Halloween, the industry of Halloween, the mask making side of Halloween, the costume sales. Ironically enough. So what we get is this picture that's about the manufacture of masks by a company called Silver Shamrock. But what the director tries to pull into this is sort of a licensing agreement with Don Post Masks.
Yes.
Don Post, who acquired from Universal the license to create Michael Myers masks on Halloween 2. It's a synergistic, movie-making, product placement, let's make money kind of a situation. And it works in as much as there are Don Post masks in this movie that are sold the year this movie comes out.
It further works in the grander Universal scheme in that this movie is produced by Universal.
Yes, indeed.
Universal starts producing a television series called Knight Rider.
Yes.
In its second season, there is a Halloween episode wherein, since Universal owns these masks, they use these masks in an episode of Knight Rider.
Fair enough. These masks that are actually called the Halloween 3. Ha 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 ha. Clever.
Yes.
Clever. Yeah. The masks are a witch mask, a skeleton mask, and a pumpkin mask, a jack-o'-lantern.
And as a guy who's seen the movie, and a guy who's seen the masks, and the guy who has seen the new iteration of the masks through Trick or Treat Studios, you can totally get rid of the witch mask.
Right. Well, I mean, the iconic one from this movie is the jack-o'-lantern mask, to be fair.
Yes, that is the iconic one.
Yeah.
And the skeleton one is cool.
Yep.
I totally dig it. It's just, that's...
Sure.
That witch mask.
Yeah.
But also, I have a thing about witches.
Yeah, you're afraid of witches.
Yep. We could go into that, folks, but...
we don't need to.
I don't think you guys are my therapists.
No. Let's just say that it's not because of a horror movie. I mean, not really.
No. It's because when I was a small child, I was 100% convinced a witch lived outside my window.
Yeah. Okay. So what we have is a ready-made connection between the mask-making industry via Don Post Studios and the movie itself. And we have a ready-built, how shall we say, a witchy plot, if you will. A Celtic mysticism plot crafted by Nigel Neal.
Yes.
That's going to merge together in a sort of unique stew that maybe is not what people are expecting. And that is that's the big problem. Okay. We have Deborah Hill, who is taking far more of an active role in the production of this movie, in the absence of John, because John is busy getting The Thing finished.
Yes.
He's involved in this, but not nearly to the extent that he was involved in Halloween 2.
Yeah.
He has sort of cut ties a little bit with Halloween 3 and is working on John Carpenter stuff. Deborah is producing The Thing and this at the same time. So what she does, just for kind of ease of budgetary concerns and because she knows she can trust it, she hires the same crew, by and large, that she hired for Halloween 2.
Yes.
Because there's no reason not to trust that crew to do exactly for Tommy Lee Wallace what they did for Rick Rosenthal.
Yep.
In fact, you can kind of trust they're going to do better for Tommy Lee Wallace. And part and parcel of that is, of course, locking down Dean Cundy.
Yes.
Dean Cundy is, at this point, the visual gatekeeper of the Halloween franchise.
I would concur, yes.
Whoever the director is, they have to work hand in hand with Dean Cundy and his visual style, which is it's a brilliant way to approach it. There is also a sort of an actor who is a member of the Carpenter Hill family of friends who hasn't been in a Halloween movie yet.
Nope.
And Deborah suggests that he should be the leading man.
Because he was so excellent in Escape from New York.
He was excellent in Escape from New York. So let's put him at the center of a Halloween movie. I mean,
he's a working actor.
Exactly.
We can utilize the time that he has spent in this industry and build this movie on his back.
Exactly. We can take an actor who was in Escape from New York, who's got a big industry name, and we can build off of him, and it'll be great. It's perfect. Halloween 3, starring Isaac Hayes. Oh, we're not talking.
No.
Who are we talking about then?
Well, we got to be talking about Donald Pleasance because.
Well, he's already.
He's already been in one.
Right,
too.
He's been in 2. So, who was the president? Was that the dude from The Man from U.N.C.L.E.?
No, the president was Donald Pleasance.
No. The other guy, the vice president. Who was that?
Was that Robert Vaughn?
Was it Robert Vaughn?
I don't know.
I can't remember if it was Robert Vaughn or not. I think it's Robert Vaughn.
See, I blank on that part because it's so inconsequential.
Right. But I mean, obviously we wouldn't be talking about him. We can't even remember who he is. So who are we talking about?
We're talking about Lee Van Cleef.
Lee Van Cleef,
the bad guy, the one. No,
right. We'll put Lee Van Cleef,
which would totally make sense because you can
Sure.
actually. He's a big name ish.
Right.
So he has been in big things.
So we'll put Lee Van Cleef as the lead, and he'll
No, we're gonna put it as the dude that's under Lee Van Cleef.
Wait, what? The
guy with the mustache.
That guy? No,
Mr. Tom Atkins.
Tom Atkins in fucking deed. So Tom Atkins is cast and becomes the lead in Halloween 3.
Dr. Dan Chalice.
Dan Chalice. So so we've got this weird movie about an occult mystery involving mask production, starring a dude who's almost 50.
Yes.
And a little quote-unquote everyman. Perhaps a little too quote-unquote everyman.
I will not disagree.
So the big question is, how is this circle squared? And there's really no way to beat around the bush. We just need to start fucking talking about Halloween 3. Like there's no making sense of it until you've talked about it. So let's dive right the fuck in.
Like we don't even have an expansive pre-production, folks. We ran out of that before we did our starring who bit.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So
like it was standard pre-production and production, folks.
Right. So the movie opens with this weird jack-o'-lantern computer animation. So once again, we have a straight-up, full-length jack-o'-lantern opening.
Yes.
In the next movie, in the franchise, that will not be there.
Yes.
So this is the last one, consecutively. And it's these lines start, appearing, and we realize over time that an image is being created, and then at the end of it, we see what that image is.
Yes.
And it's a jack-o'-lantern. And it's Halloween 3. See? Jack-o'-lanterns are the logo for the Halloween movie. Makes sense, right?
Yep.
And then
it's a unifier.
It's a unifier, exactly. We cut into the movie proper, where a man is on the run from a pursuer in a car. He runs into a junkyard.
We get a flash across the screen
of the date.
And at first you're like, okay, but we're going to be updated throughout the movie.
Yes.
This movie starts off with 8 days till Halloween, October 23rd.
Oh, and we will be once again informed of the date. And we will be informed of the date often.
I enjoy that.
Yes. In the title cards, it's fine. But we also get the jingles. And the jingles get a little overbearing.
Yeah, but the jingles don't come in every day. Sometimes, like, there are entire days where there's not a jingle, so we don't get the countdown in every day.
Right.
So the title cards, sometimes we get title cards and jingle, sometimes we get jingle. But we always get a title card.
Right. So we're about 8 days out from Halloween. And this guy, Harry Grimbridge, has run into a junkyard. And this is, we talked about it last week. There's an alley that's used in Halloween 2.
Yes.
That looks very similar to the alleyway used in Nightmare on Elm Street Part 1.
Yes.
This junkyard, I mean, I know junkyards all look alike, but the layout of this junkyard, the gate and the entrance, looks an awful lot like the junkyard used later in Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3.
Okay.
It just, for some reason, I've seen a lot of junkyards in a lot of movies, but this is the one that looks to me like that one. So I think it might be. And they did use a lot of the same shooting areas in both movies, so it's very possible. And Harry is confronted in this junkyard by a killer in an impeccable suit and tie, who chases him down and is strangling him in between two cars. Harry sees that he's got by his hand is a chain that's connected to a block that's a chalk block that's holding a car up.
Yeah.
And he yanks it, pulling the car forward in slow motion and crushing the dude who is strangling him. The car's not moving very fast.
I know.
So I mean, it's very weird that it would harm the guy as much as it does. But hey, cool, sure. So he's back on the run, right?
Yes.
What does that say? What does my note say? Crushing him.
I don't know.
Oh! Stonehenge theft.
Yes.
Ha, Stonehenge theft.
Oh,
okay.
That's weird that we had the note in the exact same spot.
Well, because that's literally what happens next.
Yes.
He runs away, and then we're at a gas station where a guy is watching the news, and they're talking about a story about the theft of one of the bricks from Stonehenge.
Yes.
And I couldn't even read the word Stonehenge in my own writing because I wrote it really fast. Mm-hmm. In a gap in between two other notes.
I have no problem making out Stonehenge. It's the disappear after it that I have the problem with.
Right. And Harry runs to this gas station where this guy is watching this thing. And he says, they're coming, they're going to kill us all. And then he collapses.
And we get our first. Oh, that was almost horrible, folks.
We get our first Silver Shamrock commercial.
Yes.
8 more days till Halloween, Halloween, Halloween. 8 more days till Halloween, Silver Shamrock. So the gas station attendant, the power's gone out, so he can't actually do his job.
Yeah.
And this guy collapsed on his floor, and it seems like he needs help. And this guy has been raised that if someone needs help, you give it to him.
Unless there's going to be trouble.
So he loads Harry up in his car, in his truck, his wrecker, and takes him to the hospital. Which is where we enter the movie proper with Dan.
Well, Dan's at his house.
Dan is at his house. Dan is not at his house. Dan...
Oh, sorry, he's not at his house.
Dan is at his ex-wife's house. He shows up with 2 paper bags... at dinner time.
Yes.
To see his kids. And what he has 2 Halloween masks for his kids. It's Halloween. We're several days out from Halloween.
8 days, in fact.
8 days. We've established that twice now in probably 8 minutes.
Just as a quick... This movie goes so far from start without dialogue.
Yeah.
It is nothing but action and action and action.
Yeah.
For what feels like forever.
Right. Well, I mean, we do get some dialogue from Crazy Harry.
Yes, but it's like
not a lot.
It's like one line, one line, one line.
Yeah. And Dan is at his estranged wife Linda's house with the Halloween mask for his kids. Linda, who is played by Nancy Loomis. So at this point, she's the only one who has appeared in all 3 Halloweens. Because she was in Halloween 1 as Annie Brackett. She was in Halloween 2 as Annie Brackett.
Corpse.
Yeah. And here she is in Halloween 3 as Linda. Linda, who thinks that Dan is a drunk. And she's not wrong.
She is not wrong.
Dan is a drunk. So he gives his kids these masks in the plastic bags, and they're all upset because, well, I mean, Linda already bought them silver shamrock masks. The titular Halloween 3 masks that we were talking about earlier, she bought them for the kids.
Yes.
And there's this creepily funny sequence of the kids putting the masks on and dancing along at the second Silver Shamrock jingle.
Yes.
When Dan gets paged, he's got to go to the hospital. He's got to do some doctoring.
I know. Linda's all like, really?
Drinking and doctoring. That's a winning combination.
And like she literally almost doesn't believe that he's actually been paged.
Right.
Like there's incredulence to her. Like, you are just trying to get out of this.
Right.
He's like, I gotta go. I'm a doctor.
Now, it's interesting to note sort of the outside story. At this point, Nancy Loomis is playing Dan Chalis's ex-wife, but she actually is Tommy Lee Wallace's wife. Like, she's married to Tommy Lee Wallace.
So they're still married.
At this point in time. Yeah, at this point. I don't know how much longer it lasts after this, but at this point in time, they are still married. So Dan leaves to go to the hospital where the gas station attendant has brought Harry.
Yes.
And he's telling the story. He's like, I found him. He's this. But can I leave? I don't want there to be trouble. Can I go?
He starts backing away.
Well, he doesn't really. He's engaged. He doesn't back away until Harry wakes up and is like, they're coming. They're going to kill us all. And then the gas station attendant backs away swiftly. No questions. He just goes away.
I have gas station dude out.
Yeah. Yep.
And while Harry is saying this, he's clutching one of the 3 iconic masks.
Yes. The pumpkin mask. So they pump Harry full of some Thorazine and
do some doctrine.
Do some doctrine on him. They pump him full of Thorazine. They treat him like he's Michael Myers in Halloween 1.
I mean, apparently, I don't know.
Apparently, it works.
Apparently, that's what you do in the early 80s and late 70s.
You just, pump them full of Thorazine and do what you got to do. And Dan does some doctoring, and then he goes off to the break room to take a nap.
He's got to sleep it off.
He's got to sleep it off. Ironically, in my notes, at various points, like right here, it actually said, this is why I was chuckling, it says Dr. Tom does some surgery. At various points, I went through and I tried to catch them all. I refer to Dan as Tom because he's Tom Atkins.
He's Tom Atkins, man.
I mean Dan, so if I say Tom, I mean Dan. There's not another character named Tom in the movie. Nope. I mean Tom Atkins. So while Dan is laying down to get some sleep, another well-dressed dude shows up in the hospital and walks into Harry's room.
Yeah.
And rips into Harry's skull through the bridge of his nose and breaks his skull open.
Yes.
And, I mean, it's a really creepy effect.
It is. It is.
And
it's no razor blade in the mouth.
No. But Nurse Agnes, who we saw helping Dan a minute ago, comes in, sees this guy finishing up this damage on Harry. Dude bolts. She starts screaming.
I'm sorry. Just what? There's this moment. He's got blood. He has black gloves on, black leather gloves.
Yeah.
He's got blood all over the gloves. But instead of taking the gloves off, he has to clean the gloves
Yeah.
on the curtain hanging in the hospital room. I don't know why that image, it gets me every time I watch this movie.
Right. So, so Dan comes running. Agnes points that, that man running away, and he checks on her briefly. So he's not a terrible doctor before chasing after the guy. But he's always a step behind the guy. The guy gets to his car, sits down in the car, and starts pouring gasoline all over himself. That's the moment when Dan actually pops out of the door and sees the guy in the car as he's lighting himself on fire. And he explodes.
Yes.
And I mean, he explodes. So at this point, Dan has to call his ex-wife to say that he cannot pick the children up because 2 people are dead, and he has to talk to the cops. She doesn't believe him. Basically, that is the motif of this movie. Linda will not believe anything that Dan says.
No, at all.
Which is, not a good situation to be in. The next day, Harry's daughter, Ellie, comes in to ID her father's body. And this is where we get sort of a montage of days passing. Like, it's the next day when Ellie IDs the body. It's the day after that when Dan is talking to the coroner's assistant, Teddy, who he has some sort of a prior relationship with.
Yes.
He probably cheated on Linda with Teddy.
I get that impression.
That's the impression I get. Yes. And he's obviously very shaken by what's going on because he's trying to get this, coroner's assistant, because she's not the actual coroner.
Yes.
He's trying to get her to work the case and give him info about what, about the body in the car.
Yes.
Not Harry, about the dude that immolated himself.
Yes.
And she agrees to do it. The next day, he's in a bar because that's what he does. He goes to bars.
Yep, it's Friday the 29th.
It's Friday the 29th. He's hanging out in a bar. And Ellie, the daughter of the guy who was killed, Harry, shows up in the bar, says, one of the nurses said, "I could find you here." So obviously he's there a lot.
Also throws out, I saw you at Papa's funeral.
Yes.
Which means sometime in the time in between, there was time for a funeral for Harry, and Chalice went.
So he's obviously real shaken up by this, and she asks him if her father said anything the night he died, and he tries to do the comforting thing and is like, tell Ellie I love her, and she's like, "You're a terrible liar.
You're a terrible liar.
You're not good at this." And that's when he reveals what Harry actually said to him, which is, of course, they're going to kill us all. They're coming.
And there's the rare moment of Tom Atkins' vulnerability here.
Right, yeah.
And accusatory nature at the same time. He's, I don't know what the hell is going on.
But he admits that he's shaken by it because that's what Harry said. And then that night, he was murdered.
Yes.
So obviously it must mean something. Ellie takes Dan from there to her father's sort of... It's almost like a junk shop. Like, he sells a lot of shit. It's a sporting goods store, but there's more stuff than just sporting goods. And he sells silver shamrock masks.
Yes.
And she's gone through, because Harry kept a decent record of everything he did. And she goes through and she's figured out that something must have happened to him somewhere between here, his store, and when he picked up another shipment of masks in Santa Mira, California, which is where they produce the silver shamrock Halloween masks.
Yes.
And they agree to go to Santa Mira to check it out.
Yep.
To investigate. So Dan goes to a payphone, calls his ex-wife, says he's bailing on the kids, grabs himself a six-pack.
Sixer and Miller, folks.
Hops in a car with a girl half his age.
Yes.
Actually half his age. I don't know about the characters, but the actress and the actor, actually half his age, to go to California. They're in California. To go to Santa Mira to investigate her father's demise. And they drive into this town, and it's a small town.
You're far too generous in your notes at the moment than I am.
Well, why?
I have car ride, exposition about factory.
Oh, I skipped all that shit. I don't need that. I don't need that. That's not necessary.
No. I don't have the exposition written down. I have
Okay.
exposition
Right.
about factory.
There's exposition about the factory. You're absolutely right. And then they get to the town. And in the town, they are being eyed by everybody as they're driving through the town. Like, literally, like, people are just watching them through the windows.
I know. Yeah,
And we get these tracking shots of these really gigantic CCTV cameras that are just fucking huge. Gigantic.
Much like your Loomis lines and
Yeah.
the last one being a favorite, I have my favorite.
Is it Company Town?
Company Town?
Company Town.
Yes.
Yes.
Because
Company Town.
they're being watched, and Ellie says, I feel like a goldfish.
And he's like, and Dan's like, Company Town.
Company Town.
Yeah. It's a good line.
It's a horrible line.
It's a good line in context.
Yes.
He's not wrong. That's exactly what it is. So yes, they decide to deal with this in a better way.
We need a plan. We need to find a place where we can talk and not being watched.
So they decide they're going to check into the motel and pose as buyers.
Yes.
People who are coming to pick up masks. Which, it makes some sense. It's where they want to look. It's where they want to investigate. So they check into the motel. And the guy, Rafferty, the guy who owns the motel, takes them on a tour of the motel room. Ellie takes the tour, and Dan runs down to the main office so that he can look in the register to see if Harry stayed here, and sure enough, he did.
Yep.
And then more people show up at the motel. We get our people.
Yep.
First, we get the Kupfers, who show up in a Winnebago. That's Buddy, Betty, and Little Buddy. Buddy Kupfer is the top seller in the United States of silver shamrock masks.
I don't see how.
No, I don't. And he has won a special tour with Connell Cochran, who is the owner of Silver Shamrock. He's going to get, to give his input into the masks and the whole process. It's a great day for Buddy. And Buddy he's an interesting character. He's fun. And then Marge Gutman shows up. Now Marge is she's also a seller of the masks, and they fucked up on her delivery, and she's not very happy, and she's not very patient. She doesn't want to be here. And then we get an announcement that it's curfew time. It's city curfew time. And hold on.
At 6 o'clock.
6 o'clock. City curfew. Get in your house. That voice sounds awful familiar. Who might that voice be? Why, I do believe it's Jamie Lee Curtis.
I do believe yes.
And it is. So, at this point, Nancy Loomis and Jamie Lee Curtis have both appeared in all three Halloween movies. In some way, shape, or form.
And then there's is this the this is where the dumb question comes up?
Not yet. Not yet.
Well, see, I thought it was I haven't.
No, because first he sneaks out to buy booze in the middle of the city curfew, and he runs into Starker, the bum who tries to get his booze.
I ain't got no diseases.
I ain't got no diseases. You mind if I have some of that? And the bum Starker gives him a bunch of intel about. No, actually, you're right. They do have their brief pre-exchange. You're right. where they're talking about, where he's going to sleep. And, where do you want to sleep? Oh, that's a dumb question.
Well, that's a dumb question, Miss Cambridge.
And then he goes to get liquor.
Yes.
Despite a curfew. And runs into this bum who explains that what has actually happened is this Irish guy named Cochran came in, built a factory for masks, brought in outside employees.
Yep.
Doesn't say from where, but outside employees. Didn't hire anybody in the town and rebuilt the economy of this small town, so they kind of owe him everything. Even though he didn't hire people in the town.
Yeah.
And he points out that there are cameras everywhere and they're constantly being watched. And he basically just has, a fuck you moment to the cameras and just, calls a lot of attention to himself. And immediately gets murdered by these well-dressed assassins.
Yes.
The second Dan walks away. These well-dressed killers that all look relatively similar. One of them looks very familiar. The last time we saw him, that we're aware of, he was a deputy in Haddonfield.
He just rammed into a kid.
Just killed Ben Tramer. But the last time we actually saw him was melting, because this is Dick Warlock. The lead well-dressed goon is what I tend to call them the most. Is Dick Warlock, who played Michael Myers in Halloween 2.
I just call them suits.
Suits, yeah, the suits are fine.
And when they kill Starker, they freaking kill him.
They twist his head and then yank it off. In probably the most effective head ripping off I think I've ever seen. Like, we talked about one a couple of weeks ago in Honey Island Swamp Tours. It's a decent head rip.
Yes.
But it's got nothing on this sequence that was filmed 20, 30 years earlier.
I can't. Which head rip were we?
Was it in number 2? I can't remember.
Okay, if it was in,
but I think it was Hatchet 2.
That was almost 30 years.
Yeah. So 30 years, and we still haven't improved upon what Tommy Lee Wallace and his team did here.
Yeah. So after his kill, Dan has not yet made it back. We get a conversation. We get a conversation.
Yeah, or a conversation
between Ellie and Gutman, Marge Gutman,
about the masks and the company
and then the reason why Dan hasn't made it back is because he's put in a call to Teddy.
To Teddy.
And she's all pissed off because they've been autopsying the wrong thing for days. Yep. She's pretty sure they've been doing an autopsy on part of the car. Yes. Somebody screwed up.
Somebody must have really screwed up. So Marge Gutman goes back to her room to, do whatever. And Dan shows back up. Ellie goes to take a shower. Then Dan shows up. Dan and Ellie have creepy age gap sex. There's another Silver Shamrock commercial, but it's an audio commercial. We intercut with Marge Gutman reading a book, because we need to see that she's been reading a book all night.
And she talking about her mask. It all ties together because she's talking about how shoddy it was.
Because the button fell off. The Silver Shamrock button on the back fell off. The trade dress. And she picks up the button and she's looking at it and she notices that there's sort of a microchippy thing. That's not really a microchip, but there's something in the back that looks circuit board like. And she pulls out a hairpin and starts prying at it. And sure enough, she gets lasered in the fucking face. My actual note is Marge is shot in the face with a laser beam, melts her mouth, bugs crawl out of it.
My actual note is laser beam, mouth, gross.
Yo, it is super gross. It is super gross.
Like what the laser...
But like realistic gross. Like,
yes. Like there's...
Like there's flesh removed, and then there's teeth. Like it's what you would expect would actually happen if you had your lips melted off.
Yes.
And then these centipedes start crawling out, and it's creepy. It's really, really creepy. And then this van shows up, and a group of doctors who all look like they're wearing suits underneath their lab coats.
Yes.
Show up, and they load Marge Gutman and take her away. But Cochran shows up too, to load this woman up into a van to take her to the factory for the best possible care. There was an accident.
Yes.
And Ellie overhears Cochran say that it was a misfire.
Yes. Don't know what that means,
Don't
folks.
know what that means, but they make a note of it. Ellie and Dan go back into the motel because they realize they don't want to call too much attention to themselves. The next day, because once again we need another next day title card.
It's now Saturday the
Now
30th,
Saturday.
folks.
I think it would have been easier to start the movie closer to Halloween. We wouldn't have to have so many title cards.
Yes.
We wouldn't have to keep explaining what keeps happening each day. If it was just start the movie on Wednesday instead of Monday, so you don't have to skip Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Just saying. It's just a lot of next days. So they go to Silver Shamrock under the pretense of picking up a missing order that was put in for her father's store. Ellie's like, we never got the order. What happened? Blah, blah, blah. And the people there are like, no, your dad picked this up. Here's the thing. He did it this day. But it's just an excuse to get into the office to ask some questions.
Yes.
While they're doing that, the Kupfers show up for their special tour. And they're getting ready for their special tour. They're asking questions. And that's when Cochran shows up. And not only does he talk to Buddy, he also introduces himself to Dan and Ellie.
Yes.
And offers to let them come on the tour. After talking to them about the incident the night before.
Yes.
Well, actually, he talks to them about the incident the night before, and then Buddy asks if it's okay if his friend comes along.
Yes.
And Cochran's like, sure.
Sure. Takes them on a tour, and
And we see how masks are made, which, is actually like it's a real, like we actually see how masks are made.
yeah,
They show.
The latex is poured on the mold. There's the reverse.
Yeah,
it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Then
And
we
get this sort of weird tour of a joke archive. It's kind of like a museum of practical joke pieces.
And it's here that we find out through Buddy that Mr. Cochran is the king of the practical joke.
King of the practical joke. Sticky toilet paper. He invented it.
Oh, come on. You got the dead dwarf gag. I don't know what this gag is, folks, and I really don't want to.
Me neither. Sticky toilet paper is enough for me. I get it. But it seems to be sort of a museum of the shit we used to do before we made masks.
Yes.
At this toy factory is really all it is. Little Buddy wants to have a mask. He tries to take one out of a box. And Cochran's like, no, you don't want that. It hasn't been through the final process yet. And he gives him one that's in a bag that's been through the final process. So Buddy asks what the process is. And our good friend Cochran has to kind of, shine him on.
Oh, it's a little this,
a little of that. Trade secrets. At this point, it's really worth pointing out that Cochran, played by Dan Harley, he's one of the shining beacons of this movie. Like, his performance here is just spot fucking on.
Yes.
Academy Award nominated Dan Harley or Academy Award winner? I can't remember. I think he was nominated. Like, he's
Not for this.
Not for Halloween 3. No, God, no, please don't. No, I'm not saying that, folks. No, but he was nominated for an Academy Award once upon a time.
And
And now he's in Halloween 3.
And after this, he goes on and is in some fun genre picks.
Yeah, and he's a bright, shining star in all of them. And here he's excellent. Like, he chews some great scenery and makes the back half of this movie a lot of fun.
Yes.
That I don't know another actor could have done. Because I know Tommy Lee Wallace talks at one point about how this was almost Donald Pleasance. I can't remember, which DVD edition or Blu-ray edition I saw that interview on. But at one point, it was going to be another Donald Pleasance starring role.
Okay.
I don't know that Donald Pleasance could have done this one. I love Donald Pleasance, but I don't know he could have played this.
He has sinister eyes.
Yes.
But I don't think he can...
I don't think he could play...
I don't think he can play the...
slimy.
The slimy and the joy and the, I have something over you.
Yes, exactly. So no, I don't think he could have done it. They walk past an area that is marked as final process. And that's when Dan notices. Out in the sort of open bay are these familiar looking men. One of them is very familiar because it looks like the guy who blew up.
Yes.
So he's like, we gotta go. So he grabs Ellie and they start heading out. And that is when Ellie sees her father's car.
Yep.
In a bay, hidden away. She starts to move toward it. Everyone tenses and starts moving toward her. Dan convinces her to let it be, and they leave.
Yep.
But they both agree that they have enough to go on here to call the fucking cops. It is time to call the cops.
It is.
So Dan, he leaves to go call the cops.
Telling her to pack. Which they have one small bag.
Yes.
I don't understand
one small
what they're
bag,
packing.
pack it, I'm going to go call the cops. And he does call the cops after he downs another beer.
Where did this beer come from?
I don't know where this beer came from. I don't know why he's drinking it. He's not drinking it in the room. I don't understand. I mean, I get it. He's an alcoholic. He needs to drink this beer to be functional, but Jesus Christ. So he calls the police, and
he tries to.
And this operator voice tells him that the call cannot be completed as dialed. And this operator voice, it sounds real familiar. It again sounds like Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yes.
It is Jamie Lee Curtis. If it's a pre-recorded female voice in this movie, it's Jamie Lee Curtis, which I think is just, it's sweet. It's a really cool thing. Dan gets back to the room to grab Ellie so they can leave, and
she's gone.
She's gone.
Door wide open.
Door is wide fucking open. He looks out the front door though, and what's standing there?
Gray suits.
Really dapper looking asshole villains. So he, goes out the back window and goes through this sort of chase through the town where he's, hiding in rose bushes and ducking under, windowsills and
hanging on the bottom of a phone booth, freestanding.
Yeah, it's very reminiscent of the opening scene with Harry.
Yes.
Evading them as well. But unlike Harry, who is running away, Dan is running toward the factory.
He catches sight of a bunch of gray suits in a car with Ellie driving past him in one of his hidey poses.
Yes, and that gives him all the information he needs to head to the factory. And he gets to the factory. This factory, by the way, it has this highest tech surveillance, right? Like, these cameras are everywhere.
Except in the fucking factory.
Now, there are some in the factory.
There are.
But not many. But also, none of these windows are alarmed.
No.
And one of them's just left open. So it's real easy to break into the factory if you know where the cameras are, or if you're just lucky enough to avoid them.
Yeah.
Like Dan Chalice is. So Dan breaks in and wanders around. And he finds... he slinks around a lot, looking at a lot of different things. Until he finds this little old lady knitting. And he asks her where the girl is. And then when the little old lady knitting doesn't answer, he shakes her violently. So violently, her fucking head comes off. And then he looks at it. There's gears turning in her shoulder.
It's some kind of...
She's a fucking robot.
An automaton.
An automaton. But yeah, she's a robot.
And then the gray suit's there, and he gets in a fight with it.
Not just any gray suit.
The gray suit.
The gray suit. The Michael Myers gray... the Dick Warlock gray suit. And they get in a fight, and he punches into his chest, and he pulls out a wire, and gook, and there's yellow vomity stuff coming out of the. He's a robot too. So while he's looking at the robot, the other robots come and they capture him.
They capture him.
Yeah.
And we Cochran shows up.
Yes. Cochran shows up and. We get our wonderful expository scene.
We get
a massive expository scene.
That was with regards to the knitting old lady. Oh, it was a one of a piece.
One of a kind piece. It was made in 1780 something.
Yep.
Which is insane, but he just kind of like, making the inside was difficult. Making the outside was just as easily as making a mask.
Yes.
So that's cool. And then they take him to the final processing area where we see that the rock from Stonehenge that we found out was stolen at the beginning of the movie.
Totally forgot about this.
We totally forgot about. It's right here, man. It's here.
And then he does my favorite thing with, I'm not going to explain this at all. You wouldn't believe how.
Wouldn't believe. We had a time getting it here.
You
wouldn't believe how we did it.
Motherfucker, I want to know how they did it.
I do want to know how they did it, but we'll never know. So you have this Stonehenge piece. You have the robots who are chiseling off pieces of Stonehenge, and you have these carts, computer carts and TV carts that are arranged around the Stonehenge piece in almost exactly the same configuration as Stonehenge itself.
Yes.
Which is, I think, a beautiful touch. It looks a little chintzy in the modern day.
Yes.
But I get where they were going with it. Like in 83?
82.
82, 83?
Cutting edge.
It's cutting edge. In 2018,
not cutting
so
edge.
So much.
Like they'd probably do it with cell phones now.
Exactly. So the pieces are being taken off of Stonehenge and are being put on the backs of the Silver Shamrock button.
Yes.
Which are being put on the masks. And then Cochran says he's going to give Dan a demo.
Yes.
And the demo is this. The Kupfers are here to finish out their tour and give their opinions on a brand new Silver Shamrock commercial.
Yep.
That's great. Sounds amazing.
But he's wondering why Cochran won't give him orders for next year.
Yeah, he's real curious. Like, they won't accept... he likes to do things early, but they won't let him. It's so weird.
It's weird.
So they take him to this room. There's a couch and a chair and a TV and curtains, but no windows. And they lock them inside, and then they start playing what is the final Silver Shamrock commercial. And there's instructions to put on your mask. And little Buddy puts on his mask.
Yeah.
Just like he's told. And the commercial begins. And it's, that London Bridge is falling down Silver Shamrock song. And it plays and plays and plays and plays and plays and plays. And little Buddy starts ripping his mask. and little buddy falls on the ground.
The mask kind of melts into his face.
And it's melting into his face, and he falls to the ground, and bugs start crawling out of his mask, and then a snake starts crawling out of his mask, and then a second snake starts crawling out of his mask, and the snakes start going around and biting Big Buddy and the mom, and there's cockroaches and spiders.
Folks, I am between this and number 2 with the razor apple. I am so happy I did not see these movies when I was a kid.
Right? But of note is the fact that this movie just killed a child.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and that's the plan. That's the goal here.
Then we get this is where we get the montage of kids across the country.
Yes. All going out to,
Trick or treat
with their masks.
All of these with their masks on.
All with their silver shamrock Halloween masks.
And then we get the thing
with yet another instance of the fucking song. Which, by the way, folks, you will not escape. You will hear this song before we are done.
Then we get the thing. We go back to Teddy.
Teddy, who is looking at the pieces she has, which are supposedly the right pieces now, but they're still machine parts. And she tries to call in an expert.
Yeah.
She doesn't get an expert. She gets a dude in a gray suit with a drill.
It took me a while, and I intentionally did not bring this up earlier.
Yeah.
Because I missed it for several viewings of this movie.
Yeah.
For a while I wondered, how did they know to kill Teddy?
Yeah.
There's a shot
of a microphone.
A microphone.
Yeah, in the phone he keeps using, there's this circular microphone
that is under the desk.
Yes.
So it's behind and under.
Yeah. Anytime he called Teddy from the office of the motel. Really? You didn't see
Not the first one or two times. I mean, I see it now.
Right.
But like the first time I saw it on the horrible VHS that I rented from Blockbuster.
Okay. VHS, that makes some sense. I don't know how it's panned and scanned, so I can't speak to that. I've never actually seen this movie on VHS. I've never saw it panned scanned.
Yeah.
When we went through the franchise, both times we went through the franchise on VHS, we skipped it. We just did the Myers movies. And when I watched it, I just did the Myers movies.
My goodness, you fell asleep.
I don't recall having fallen asleep.
No, it was in the time.
I recall going, I'm not interested in watching that.
No,
and we watched the Myers movies.
Well, yes, but there was one time when we were in 617 before I rented it, when we were Bedouin-daying it.
Right.
And it was one of the movies that I rented, and I watched it, and I didn't realize that you didn't watch it.
Oh, yeah, no, I didn't see it. I did not see it on VHS at any point. I've seen it on TV, and I've seen it on DVD and Blu-ray. But I never saw a VHS copy of it. So I never saw a pan and scanned copy of it.
I did.
Because on TV, I didn't see it until I had a widescreen TV.
Okay.
Or, no, I didn't see it until AMC started showing letterboxed movies. And then I got a widescreen TV.
Yeah,
I've never seen it.
And the color was so bad.
I don't doubt
that. When it comes down, even because it's in frame, but when you come down, you can't see
it
because it's so dark against on the VHS.
And Teddy gets killed with a drill to the skull.
Yes.
And this is where we're building toward our third act turn, and there's a beautiful moment with the third act turn that I'm gonna call out in a second. But what we get first is Cochran giving a Bond villain explanation of his plan, which is wonderful.
And it's so wonderful. And the reason, like, we're told that he's the king of the practical joke.
Yeah.
We get the payoff in his Bond villain speech because, yes, it is a joke. It's the best joke. A joke on the children.
And what it is he's a Celtic pagan who believes in the festival of Samhain. Cochrane says correctly the word that Sam Loomis mispronounces
Yes.
in Halloween 2. And Cochran speaks to the actual lore of Samhain that Sam Loomis gets wrong in Halloween 2.
Yes.
So it's the difference between knowledge and experience. And what's going on is Cochran is... The planets are aligned, and he's creating a bloodbath to effectively reset nature. And he's going to broadcast this commercial out during the horror-thon.
The big giveaway.
At 9. After Halloween the movie airs. The immortal classic Halloween is what it's referred to.
Yes.
And the kids will be compelled to put their masks on, and they will all fucking die.
Just like we saw Little Buddy.
And that bloodbath will sate the gods. So, having explained all this to Dan, he straps him to a chair, puts a mask on him, and wheels him into a position where he can watch Halloween the movie on TV. And here is where we get the third act turn. The beautiful thing about this is the movie that is playing that he has to watch is Halloween the movie.
Yes.
John Carpenter's Halloween. And it is at the exact moment that Laurie Strode walks out of the Doyle house to cross the street to go to the Wallace house to check on Annie.
Yeah.
Which is the third act turn of Halloween.
Yes.
And there is no music cue in this film to set up the third act turn. They use the John Carpenter music from Halloween 1, and they crank up the volume on it so that it becomes the score piece for the third act turn of this movie.
Yeah.
Just as it was the third act turn of the first movie. It's a brilliant little moment to be like, no, this is structurally, here we are. We are at the exact same moment. We're making the turn into the last act where all the action's going to happen.
This seems familiar to me.
It should.
As if it's done sometime in the 90s, too.
It is. It will be done again. We might want to talk about that.
I think we will. But not now.
Not now. I think we'll save that for the book club. So, Dan does not even waste any fucking time. Dan has a plan. Dan just straight up breaks a fucking TV with his feet.
There's no way that I'm getting caught by that laser beam. I saw it. No way.
He kicks through the TV, uses the glass from the screen to cut his bindings, to take his mask off, and then escapes through the fucking ventilation system like he's goddamn James Bond himself. After getting a Bond villain level plot explanation, he's now Bond without any training. He tosses his mask over the camera so that it looks like a malfunction, and he climbs up and he's escaping.
My favorite little bit about that is in one of the commentaries. He says, "Scored it perfect. Did the toss perfect in rehearsal." And then took 40 takes.
Right. Now, the beautiful thing about this is that there's an underling who's trying to tell Cochran about what's going on, about the fact that there's a malfunction with the camera or what have you. But Cochran is on like the most ridiculously long sales call. So he's just holding off on responding to this for like a minute and a half, 2 minutes. And he's just going on like, of course. Yes. The guy's just standing there.
Oh, I think we're going to get a 70 share.
And they keep cutting back to Dan getting further and further away, escaping more.
Finding a phone, calling his ex-wife.
Yes.
Take the masks away. Turn the TV off.
And then they cut back. After he's made this phone call, hidden from more suit dudes, then finally, Cochran gets off the fucking phone.
And right before Cochran's getting ready to talk, he frees Ellie.
Yeah.
takes Ellie away with him. And finally, Cochran can turn to the guy who's been trying to get his attention.
It's beautiful in its simplicity.
Oh, the timing.
But it's the most comedic moment of the entire movie, in my opinion, and I fucking love it. So Dan frees Ellie, and they sneak into the main room, okay? And the problem with this is I saw this after I saw GoldenEye. So I was like, holy shit, GoldenEye ripped off Halloween, and it ruined GoldenEye for me a little bit. Because the way they sneak past people is they walk behind this rolling cart covered with masks, and they walk the cart slowly from one side of the frame to the other, which, if you've seen GoldenEye, is exactly what James Bond and Sean Bean's character, Alec Trevelyan, do in the opening of fucking GoldenEye.
Yes.
Only it's not masks. But it's the exact same sequence. It's like, really? You ripped off Halloween? God damn you.
And then we get what may be my favorite reversal of fortune in a Halloween movie.
Yeah.
Because Dan has seen the test, the test. He knows that the medallion is what it does.
Yep.
He finds a box of medallions. He was told that the magic from the chips of Stonehenge is used.
Yep.
He knows that the commercial is the trigger. They turn the commercial on.
Well, they don't turn the commercial on. He sneaks into their ranks in the most improbable sneaking into the bad guy lair scene ever, because there's no way they wouldn't see him. And he sets the video to start playing and then runs back, grabs the box, and with Ellie runs up the stairs. And then just starts shaking out the box so that the medallions start falling on the suit robots, electrocuting them.
And the actual people who can, actual real technician people.
And the actual real technician people. And he's just dumping this shit on them.
And as the commercial plays, he's dumping them, and the lasers start firing.
And people are just dying. And Cochran looks up and sees Dan, after all of his henchmen are dead, looks up, sees Dan and Ellie in the rafters, and just gives him a golf clap. Like, you won. Good job. Well done.
And
that's when he gets fucking incinerated by a laser beam from fucking Stonehenge that turns him first into a paper mache man and then kills him, which is just amazing. Yeah, I fucking love it.
But Dan still, he's won this. The bad guys are defeated. He's still got to stop the broadcast.
Yeah. So Dan and Ellie start running away from a building that's now on fire. And they get in a car and they start driving to a place where they can find a phone that fucking works.
Yep.
So that they can call to stop the broadcast. And it's driving along. And long about the time that Dan is piecing together that something's wrong, we, the audience, are also piecing together. Wait a minute, Ellie hasn't said a fucking word in the last 8 minutes of this movie.
Just like those great...
Just like those fucking robots. And Ellie's a fucking robot, too. And she tries to kill Dan in the fucking car. The car crashes. And then we get this long-ass robot fight where he rips her head off and then rips her arm off. And then, but she's still alive. And she keeps coming back. And she keeps attacking him.
The single arm attacks
him. The single arm attacks him. And it just goes on way too goddamned long. But the car is damaged beyond any recognition.
Yeah, he's not going to be able to drive away from the tree he planted it in.
Right.
So he's going to run.
He is going to run. And he is going to run all the way to a gas station. The exact same gas station that Harry ran to at the beginning of the movie. We are going to see the gas station attendant again. He's going to recognize Dan. He's going to be like, "Don't I know you?
Don't I know you?"
And Dan is going to get on the phone. I don't know who the hell he called. Like the president of television? I mean,
There's a president of television?
I don't know who you call for this.
I don't know who you call
Who
because
did you
there's
call to
3
be like,
separate networks.
hey, I need ABC, CBS, and NBC to not air. I'm sorry, the 3 networks. Sorry. To not air a commercial. Who do I call? The FCC? The FCC won't let me be me. Who do I call?
I don't know, but Dan
knows.
Dr. Dan knows.
Dr. Dan, the drunkard, knows who the fuck to call.
The thing that I love about it is while he is on the phone,
Right.
you can there's a shot outside to the gas station,
Uh-huh.
and there are kids walking past him in the window in their masks.
A car pulls up, a casket, kids get out, and they come in, the gas station attendant's giving them fucking candy, and he's on the phone. He's like, no, you got to take it off the air. Say it's a bomb. I don't care. Say whatever. And it's 9:00. It's time.
It's time.
So the TV network starts going to the show, and the kids come in to watch. And he tells them to take it off, and the first network goes to a please stand by logo.
Please
Says
stand
we're
by.
having technical difficulties. They flip the channel to the second one, and that one also please stand by, technical difficulties. They clip to the third channel, and the commercial goes on, and it goes on, and it goes on.
And we're hearing the jingle, and it's going on. It's going on.
And he's like, you have to stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. And that's the end of the movie.
That's
folks.
the end of the movie.
That's it. That's congratulations, folks. We've reached the end. Halloween 3, Season of the Witch.
So,
Yeah. So,
do you think they stopped it?
I don't know. I know when asked this very same question, Tom Atkins says he likes to believe they did.
Yes.
If John Carpenter directed this movie, I would say no. No, they did not. If this were a Carpenter film, the answer would definitely be no. But it's not a Carpenter film. It's directed by somebody else.
Yes. Who has no indication of what happens next.
Exactly.
Leaves it to the audience to make their decision.
I'm going to say probably they turn it off and a small number of children die. That'd be my guess.
Okay.
What about you? What do you think?
When I was in my 20s,
Yeah?
they totally didn't shut it off.
Right.
And all those kids died.
But now that you're in your 40s, you're like, oh, God, I can't have these deaths on my
I
conscience.
can't have these imaginary kids dead in my head.
I can't do this. This is messed up. This is wrong.
That's millions of imaginary dead kids.
Yes.
So I believe that they did manage to shut it off.
Okay. Fair enough.
Ask me again in 10 years in my 50s.
Fair enough. Yeah. So, Halloween 3, it's a unique... It's an interesting film.
Yes.
I found that the more I watch it, the more I like it.
Yes. That is how
Unlike Halloween 2, where it's the reverse.
opposite, yes.
It stands on its own in a way that, the others, by being part of a broad franchise, nothing can really rise above its own starting level.
Yeah.
This one can. It has legs. It can move. It can go places, which is interesting. And frankly, it's a fun little movie, and it's well directed and it's well shot. At the end of the day, that's all you really need. Unfortunately, we're gonna get to Money Corner in a minute, and I know that's bad.
Yeah.
And it's gonna lead to a lengthy hiatus for the franchise. And what we get back will never be as creative an output as what we left here.
No.
Halloween 1, Halloween 2, despite its problems, and despite the fact that it's not very good, was kind of a high bar in terms of the cinematography.
Yes.
You know, and we're not going to get a true lenser back on the picture for a long time.
Yeah.
And we're not going to get a director who is as competent as John Carpenter for a long time. And it's the franchise we leave behind at the end of this first 3 movies is very different than the franchise we pick up in 1988 with Halloween 4.
Yep.
And that's the other thing, is 1982?
Yeah.
We don't see Halloween. It's either 82 or 83. I thought it was 83. But we don't see Halloween again until 1988. So we're either 5 years out or 6 years out.
October 22nd, 1982.
Okay, so we are 6 years away. That's the damage this does.
Yes.
It kills the franchise for 6 straight years.
Yeah.
All right. So what, in your mind, is the best kill of Halloween 3, Season of the Witch?
I just for super visual sake, I go with Marge Gutman.
Same here. Marge Gutman Laserface. I'm a fan. It's good stuff. Which is ironic because this is exactly the opposite of the kind of kill I preferred in Halloween's 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Particularly 2. I didn't really care for the graphic kills. I liked the more subdued stuff.
Yeah.
Which is fine for those 2 pictures, but this isn't a Myers picture.
No.
I want the gore. I want the blood. I want the guts.
I want the supernatural.
I want the bugs crawling out of her mouth.
I really don't want that.
Well, yeah, but and what is the worst kill?
Worst kill. It's got to be the Ellie bot.
See, I said it was the Teddy Drill. I'm not a fan of the Teddy Drill kill. Seems a little much.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, let's do it. Let's go look at Financial Corner
All right.
on Halloween 3.
So you got a guesstimate on the budget?
On the budget, I'm willing to bet it comes in a little less. No, a little bit more than Halloween 2. I'm betting it's $3 million.
2.5 again.
2.5, exact same numbers?
Yes.
Okay. Well, it is the next year.
Yeah.
That makes sense. If it was 2 years removed, I could see it maybe going up 0.5. But, okay. Sure. So it's
like it almost makes me think in the deal that they inked with Universal
they had
for the 2 movies.
2.5 each.
Yeah. Like
that makes
and
some
it totally
sense.
that also jives with what I've researched through the years and heard about Dino.
Yeah. That makes sense. So but what does it make?
Well,
I mean, the last one made 10 times its budget.
yes, the last
This one will not do that.
This one comes in at $14,400,000.
That's not bad, though.
No, people.
See, that's the thing. People have painted this as a massive failure, but that's still 7 times your budget.
Yes.
That's what the fuck, man.
There has been this apocrypha and craziness surrounding it for years that this is a failure.
Clearly, it's not.
It's not. It is not as much a success as its 2 predecessors.
Well, no, but who expected it would be?
I assume
see, there's this
Universal
wonderful thing,
did.
right? But there's this thing we've talked about a bunch. Maybe there just hadn't been enough sequels at that point in time for them to really start noticing the trend of the law of diminishing averages. Maybe.
Yes.
But that's what's at play here. So $14 million.
Yeah.
And that's enough to kill the franchise. That is some bullshit.
Well, I
there.
think Universal was expecting it to perform
like Halloween 2.
like Halloween 2.
And then it didn't.
And it's an $11 million drop.
Well, that's true, but shit. I mean, it still made more than its budget back. And it made more than other Halloween movies will make to justify making a sequel.
Yes.
That's a shame. That's
in
a
fact,
goddamn shame.
It comes in. Here's the interesting thing about it.
Yeah.
It comes in around the same figures as Halloween 5.
Huh. Interesting.
And between Halloween 3 and Halloween 4, there is 6 years. And in between 5 and 6, there is
6 years.
So
Fair enough.
when you make $14 million, you get punished for 6 years.
Shit. Fair enough. All right.
Adjusted, it's 45.
That's still nothing to sneeze at.
Yeah, but it's, in this case, jumping, it was 85 versus 45.
Fair
in
enough.
today's, if we're talking, it's 85 versus 45.
Right. Damn.
Which is a bigger gap.
It's a bigger gap, but I mean, come on.
Yeah.
That's
That's
nothing. It's literally nothing.
Yes.
Also, yeah, it's a bigger gap, but if you're adjusting for inflation, you need to adjust the budget for inflation too. Which means the gap is, again, going to be the same because the same exponent will improve the smaller figure and the larger figure, so the rate would be the same.
However, we have we talked about this in Camp Crystal Lake Revisited.
Yes, we did.
So these are making these movies, this money. I think Universal was expecting to make Paramount Friday the 13th money.
Well, yeah, that makes some sense.
Which, while this one made 14 in its year, number 3 of Friday the 13th made, I can't remember, 30 some odd.
Okay, so half of what Friday made. Well, that might be viewed more as a failure if you're looking at the fact that it made half of what the other movie made.
Yes.
But at the same time, I mean, this was a success financially. Like, there's no argument that this is a success. So I don't know where that narrative of it being a failure comes from, because it's truly not.
The narrative comes in from fandom, I believe, because this movie didn't have Michael Myers in it.
Right.
And they wanted Michael Myers because Halloween means Michael Myers.
Yes. Well, and how much of that ends up being created by the mythology that Mustafa Akkad creates when 4 comes out. Because what's going to happen is the deal with Universal was for 2 pictures.
Yeah.
So the rights revert to Trancas or Compass. Which one's Mustafa again? Trancas or Compass?
Trancas is Mustafa. However, at one point, Trancas had controlling interest in Compass.
Right. Okay. Yes. But the rights are going to go back to Mustafa
And John.
Which
is going to cause some interesting things we're going to talk about.
Yes. But the first thing is that Mustafa is going to start looking at what he can do financially. And that's going to take him a little while to sort of solve. And then he gets into sort of a protracted argument with John over what to do with the rights.
Yes.
Which takes some time. There's negotiations back and forth about what to do, where to go. John's done. Like, John doesn't want to do another one. Certainly doesn't want to do another one the way Mustafa wants to do another one. Because Mustafa instantly, from everything we know about the interim process, outside of the mythology presented by Mustafa,
yes,
is that Mustafa immediately said, okay, let's do a Myers picture. This didn't work, let's do a Myers picture.
Yeah.
And John said no.
John...
At first.
We're going to talk about this. He says no at first. He comes around to say yes, comes around to say no, comes around...
Loops around several times. But in 1983, when the rights actually revert, the answer is no. And that's what causes some of that 6-year gap, is the back and forth. So how much of the mythology of number 3 being a failure comes out of Mustafa Akkad in 1988, 89, 90 trashing John Carpenter Because he did do a lot of that.
Yes.
Because, John and Deborah, they messed up. And some of that stuck. Some of that landed with audiences and stuck. So I'm wondering if maybe that's where it was a failure comes from. Yeah. Because a lot of the reason that we don't have a Halloween movie between this one and the next one isn't necessarily that nobody's willing to gamble on one or no one's willing to spend the money on one. It's that Mustafa doesn't get one up and running.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the real story. The real story is that it takes time to get one up and running, to get all the legal issues ironed out. And some of those legal issues, frankly, never get ironed out. Because we were talking about this the other day, and this is as good a place to talk about it as any. To include the ending of Halloween 1 in Halloween 2, the rights for portions of Halloween, the movie, had to be sold to Universal.
Yes.
And some of those rights never reverted to anyone. So Universal, at this point, exclusively owns the rights to Halloween 2.
Yes.
Everything included within it. Including any footage that's in Halloween 2 from Halloween 1.
Yes.
Miramax, up until... Actually, I don't even know. I don't even know who owns Halloween at this point. I think it's still Miramax.
I am not sure if it's Miramax.
Or if it has been completely sold to Anchor Bay in terms of distribution rights in perpetuity. I don't know. I think it's still Miramax because Miramax still has a controlling interest in in Halloween 2018.
Yes.
So Miramax still owns Halloween, John Carpenter's Halloween. But they don't own the rights to the Universal footage.
No.
So they own the rights to the first 90 minutes of Halloween, but not the last 6.
Yeah.
So there's lots of confusing bullshit because of the Universal stuff and because of the way, frankly, that Mustafa structured that deal. And some of that stood in the way of making Halloween 4 as well.
Yes.
So there's a lot of legal stuff to maneuver. And some of that takes some time. So that's part of the real delay. Not so much a broad budgetary failure. But it is a failure critically.
Yes.
And it is a failure amongst fans. Fans don't want a non-Myers picture. Was their reaction. I mean, there's a softer spot for it today amongst fans, but back then, maybe not so much.
I didn't even really start in the online communities I frequent seeing a turn for it until like the last 10 years.
Right. Well, I think that's probably owing to the fact that it has been in heavy rotation on AMC during the Halloween season. That's kind of the beauty of the way AMC structures their Halloween marathon during Halloween week. Like they show 1, they show 2, they show 4, they show 5, they show sometime. I think they have the rights to 6.
Some years they have. I don't know if they still do.
And they show Halloween 1 almost exclusively again and again and again during Halloween Day.
Yes.
But the thing that ends up getting the most repeats over the course of the week that they do it is always Halloween 3. Like Halloween 3 is the one that gets scheduled the most.
Third is Halloween 4.
Right. So it's the one that's on most often. So I think fans are clicking through it and seeing it during that and going like, you know what, it's not that bad. And then going and watching it on video and then going, you know what, it really isn't that bad. But yeah, I think a lot of its failure, quote unquote, in terms of long-term failure, its view in the audience is mythologized.
Yeah.
By Mustafa, and we'll talk about the other side of all that next time, because we will come back and we will make another Halloween movie. Eventually, everyone will start to hunger for more Michael Myers. And when they do, Mustafa Akkad will be there to create Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers. And that's what we'll look at next time, folks. For Everyone's Entitled to One Good Scare, the Arcofe's exclusive Halloween podcast, I have been your host, Matthew J. Blanchard, one half of the Brothers Blanchard.
I've been Patrick J. Blanchard, the other half.
And we've been the guys who pay the late fee so you don't have to. Join us here next time to talk about Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers.
Happy, happy Halloween, Halloween, Halloween. Happy, happy Halloween, silver shamrock. Happy, happy Halloween, Halloween, Halloween. Happy, happy Halloween, silver shamrock.
It's almost time, kids. The clock is ticking. Be in front of your TV sets for the Horror-thon. And remember the big giveaway at 9. Don't miss it. And don't forget to wear your masks. The clock is ticking. It's almost time.
Happy, happy Halloween.